Hey you guys, thank you for watching. So I am finally doing my Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette review. I know it's been out for quite a while now, and I've had it for a while now. I ordered it like right when it came out. I totally got into the hype for it. And I actually did film my first impression like the day after I got it or whatever. But I decided to scratch it and just do a review like this. First impressions are great, and I film them a lot and I watch them a lot. But just with all like the controversy on this palette, I wanted to make sure I was having no like pre-existing biases. So I don't know about you guys, but for me, sometimes like I like something in the beginning and then later on like I don't like it as much. You guys probably know like the drama, the tea with this palette. But basically it all started with a first impression review by Alissa that kind of started bringing the controversial attention to the palette. At least as far as I know. When it happened, that video came out the day after I filmed my video. And the thing about it is I was really positively biased. Like I was like super hyped about it in the beginning. And reading the more like negative reviews kind of made me realize some things that the first time I used it, I didn't really consciously think about because I was just so excited. It was my first Anastasia Beverly Hills palette. I was really hyped up for it, so I kind of just forgot, or didn't forget, but like I was just being quite biased. And I definitely feel like the same thing can happen obviously for negative bias when you hear all these reviews, and it just gets a preconceived notion in your head even before you even see the palette or try the palette out for yourself in real life. Now of course there are technical things with the palette that can definitely be good or bad without bias. For example, if eyeshadow is falling out, that's bad. For example, if eyeshadow is skipping and not blending correctly, yes, that's bad. So now that the palette is out and in stores, I recommend, if you haven't gotten yet, for anyone to test it out in stores first. Just so you're not buying something based off other people's kind of experience with it, and you're buying it based off your own experience with it. So with that being said, I have to totally admit that when I first got it, I was falling victim to like the positive bias of it because, number one, this is my first Anastasia palette, and that's another thing. A lot of the reviews I've seen, it wasn't people's first Anastasia palette. I usually don't like buy makeup at launches, maybe like once or twice a year. It's pretty rare for me. I like to know I want something for quite a while before I purchase. But you know, I was seeing this all around Instagram and all that. And, you know, the review that actually made me want to get it was atleeeey or Ashley. I'll have linked down below. Because I was liking it before, like the colors. I'll show you guys. I'm sure you've seen it so much. But I was thinking the palettes were really cool. And the other thing is sometimes, I mean, I don't consider myself like a professional makeup artist. But it is my hobby. It is a passion of mine. I really love just the artistry of it, creating and trying new things. So sometimes I'll look at a palette and I'll say, wow, you know, I feel like this is really different colors than what I usually do. It'll help me create new things, come up with new ideas, experiment, and expand my artistry. One palette is a good example for that is the SHAANXO palette with BH Cosmetics. I'll link it down below for you guys, but the shades in that palette were really different, unique, not what I normally use. Just the way the palette is, just the color selection and all that, helped me come up with new techniques, new looks and stuff. So I like that. I like being able to, you know, use things that will help me step outside my comfort zone and expand my artistry again. So with this palette, that was a big thing for me. Before it actually came out, I think it's safe to say that we didn't know much about the pigmentation or anything like that, which I'm sure you guys know all about, that it's soft pressed. There wasn't much information released about it, so I think everyone kind of assumed that it would be the same press, the same type of pigmentation as their previous palettes, like Modern Renaissance and stuff like that. And like I said, I've never tried an Anastasia palette before. This is my first one. So again, I did not have any preconceived notions about that. I knew they were very pigmented, Anastasia in general. I knew they were really good. I wouldn't be buying it if I didn't think it was going to be really good quality. And I had been wanting to try out, you know, an Anastasia palette, so it just seemed like let's go ahead. Let's go and try this one. I was really excited to get it. Again, kind of my positive bias going in because my first Anastasia palette, you know, whatever. Anastasia herself did a Snapchat kind of background about the palette and about just the brand in general and kind of the story and the journey of the brand and how they kind of always were putting out new things that were just different and people weren't used to, but then it became a huge thing. Like, for example, she basically started eyebrows, which I knew they were big on eyebrows, but that was another thing that I didn't really know, that she like basically started eyebrows. So I didn't watch on Snapchat. I actually watched it through like a tea video, Kuckian, sorry, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, channel. So I'll link that video down below. But I really liked that because I just love with brands and just like people too, like successful people. I love hearing like the background and journey of things. So I really enjoyed that. And you know, she mentioned like, okay, you know, we did put out this palette for people who kind of want a challenge, kind of want to expand their artistry. You know, the colors are very different. This is soft press. We haven't done a palette this soft press before. Now, I think if they would have mentioned that this was going to be kind of a different palette before they release, before people purchase, if they would have said the press is different from our previous palettes, I think that would have helped out. I think people were just really expecting it to be exactly the same as like Modern Renaissance. It's something they know and love, so they expected more of the same. So I think that's something that just caught people by surprise. I think it was really nice that Anastasia explained it that way because, again, like she said, she's always been kind of ahead of the game, such an innovator, such a pioneer in the makeup world, and this actually was aligned with Anastasia's brand in that sense. But like I said, I think if they would have mentioned this before actually releasing, I think it would have caused a lot less hectic. As soon as I dipped my brush, I did notice the fairly excessive kickback. Again, for me, being at my first Anastasia palette, I was like, oh, well, you know, that's just the way it is. These are the Anastasia very pigmented shadows. They're gonna have some kickback like that because they're so pigmented. That's just Anastasia. You know what I mean? Like, I have other palettes that kick back, like the Kat Von D Shade like eye contour palette. It's not something that really bothers me. For me, it's kind of like a sign of being pigmented, so I was like, oh cool, this is how the pigmented Anastasia shadows are. But looking back, so my first look I worked with the green blue shades all in the crease, and it took me a long time to blend it out. It was kind of funny because during the time, in my own head, I was like kind of making excuses for myself. I'm like, this is kind of taking a while, but, you know, I'm not the best at makeup. But, yeah, it took extra time to blend than what I'm accustomed to. It also did fall out onto my cheeks, and I already had my face makeup on. It also did do some skipping. And that's the other thing that I was kind of making some excuses for in my head. I'm like, this is kind of skipping, but I don't know. My eyelids are kind of dry. Like, sometimes shadows do that, and I don't know. Like, it's probably just me. And then the next day, again, I saw it, like, blowing up on Twitter, and then I went ahead and watched Alissa Ashley's video, and then I saw her kind of bringing up things, and it made me think, like, oh, wait, like, I was noticing these things my first time trying, but I kind of overlooked them because I was so excited and happy to have it. So that's when I just kind of took a step back. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to upload this. I'm going to take my time with this palette, really see how I truly feel about it, and post like a full-on review, which I'm doing right now. Now, I will say I'm not super educated in things like ingredients and stuff like that. I wanted to recommend you guys a review that's really good, really based off like kind of factual things such as ingredients and all that. And it is Stephanie. Is her name Stephanie Nicole? Yeah, I think her name. It was my first video. I've heard of her. I heard her reviews are really good. It was my first review I watched by her, and it was so bomb. It was really good, really detailed. It's a really good review. It's lengthy, but it's detailed. So I recommend that one to you guys, which I'll link below as well. And I'll go ahead and link all the reviews I'm mentioning. I've done like, I haven't done even that many looks since then. It shows you one thing. I haven't been reaching for it a whole lot, maybe like, I guess on average like once a week. So yeah, I've done a few looks since then, and it's been okay. Now that I knew kind of about the kickback situation and all that, I kind of like realize how to work with it. Since then, I never had any more fallout onto my face, which is good. So I don't swirl my brushes. I knew a big thing was like swirl versus tap. Like, wait, I never even like paid attention to this, but like, do I tap it or do I swirl? Like, what do I normally do? And yeah, I tap it and then just really lightly, you know, you don't need to do it hard. And I just found that even though it kicks back, it's not that big of a deal for me, because when I go to re-pick up some color, I pretty much just pick up the kickback, so it doesn't really get wasted for me. The only time I swirl is when I feel like I'm just not getting pigmentation from a shadow, and I don't like that. I like being able to just dip it and know, like, wow, just this one little dip, I have so much pigment. So that's that. And another thing I tend to do is press a little too hard when I do my shadows. I just do it with everything. Like when I write, I press really hard. My first time I was probably pressing a bit too hard, but ever since then I stayed really conscious of not pressing too hard. I like buying a product that's gonna help make me better as an artist, and I feel like it was doing that in that sense, because it's making me stay conscious of having a light hand. So I kind of like that. So a lot of people have been saying the shimmer shades, they were like kind of hard to apply and blend out. And looking back, yeah, I put electric on the lid. So what I actually did, I was gonna do a half cut crease with this purple shade on the lid, and I did put that on the lid initially, but I didn't like it. It came out a little darker than I thought. And then I started putting electric on the inner corner, and I'm like, okay, well, why don't I just spread this out to the whole lid on top of the purple? And it actually covered up the purple like completely. It looked like the purple was never even there, which is kind of funny. I've seen people saying that these shimmer shades, especially electric, aren't that pigmented, but for that I thought it was pretty pigmented. It literally covered up this fairly dark purple shade. People also saying that they're kind of like hard to blend out. They had to keep working it, which I agree on too. I definitely had to keep working this quite a bit. I've used this shimmer shade too. It's good. It's like a standard copper shimmer. This one, yeah, this one was kind of weird. I don't necessarily think this is a palette for beginners. Even before I bought it, I didn't really see it as a palette for beginners, and I think that's another thing that Anastasia was trying to get across with it, which wasn't quite clear in the beginning, but I think with the Snapchat by Anastasia, she made it very clear that this isn't necessarily a palette for beginners, but it's more for kind of expanding your own artistry, which I think is dope. From what I've seen, I think the darker ones are the ones giving a little bit more trouble with blending out and skipping and all that. That's that. And yeah, let me show you some swatch comparisons. I'm actually going to start with Roxy as a transition on this big old fluffy brush. You guys can see how quite pigmented it is. Another thing is really be mindful of the placement of when you start out. Whatever place you initially touch when you go in is where it's going to put the most pigment. Again, I know not everyone wants to have to like change the way they do their shadow for one particular palette, and I don't think any one particular palette should make you change the way that you do your shadow. Alright, next up I'm going to go ahead with Destiny. Okay, so with my first couple strokes, it's kind of skipped, as you can see, but I didn't press too hard. I think with pressing too hard, it'll kind of make a permanent skip that you can't blend out. But I think that as long as you're using a light hand the whole time, you should be able to get a smooth, even blend. Okay, I'm going to pick up All Star and put it in the outer and inner V. Working this up a bit into the crease too. Okay, I do kind of feel like the three colors have kind of like mudded together, honestly, in my crease. They've kind of turned into like a brown. Maybe I shouldn't have used Roxy as a transition just because it's quite warm. Kind of like All Star has kind of taken over, but it's like a brown version of All Star. I mean, it could just be this color combination in general will make that happen. I don't know. I've never really done a combination like this. Oh, la la la. I don't know. I haven't tried a blue on the lid yet. I'm just gonna do Untamed on the center lid. Okay, so this is how it's come out. I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm left with this kind of weird situation going on in my crease. Like, I don't know, like sometimes this happens to me when I put a dark shade on the lid. So again, I don't know if it's just kind of my technique where I need to start adding dark lid shades first and then do crease work. I don't know. Because like, first, I don't know, I was liking this palette, but I just feel like the dark shades are odd. They're really odd. They don't work very well together. It's just from what I'm seeing. I think I'm going to do one of the shimmers on this one and see how that turns out. And if it's okay, I'll just go over the blue. So I'm going to try Cube. Let's try it. Okay, I'm liking this a lot better, actually. I also didn't bring it up quite as high. And I don't know, I guess with Halo Eyes, it's usually not a matte shade in the middle. It's more a shade like this. Okay, I'm just going to try and go over the blue right quick with Cube as well. Hopefully it'll still come out like the same color. It's like crumbling all over me. My gosh. This looks kind of jacked up right now. I don't really like how Cube kind of unevenly distributes the pink iridescent color. Like, if you guys can see, there's some spots that are like really quite pink and some spots that are just kind of white. I guess because this side is on top of the blue Untamed shade, it's kind of causing it to be chalkier since it's on top of like a matte shade. And yeah, I'm getting fallout again. I don't know, this is weird. Like, ever since my first time I've been having good experience, but now I don't even know. I'm gonna try to finish up this look. I don't know though. I don't know. I kind of want to do like the yellow and orange on the lower lash line. So let's try it. So this is the more yellow shade edge. You know what, I think I'm actually going to like really smoke out this yellow edge and then add some more purple all-star kind of more like right on like the lash line. I actually do kind of liked how the bottom lower lash line came out, like how I smoked it. It's kind of cool, kind of grungy. Again, different from what I normally do. It just kind of happened. I guess, you know, this side isn't too bad. I think if I wouldn't have put the blue down first, this side would be looking better. I'm gonna just go ahead and add some Cube to the inner corner and brow bone real quick. You guys, I'm gonna pop on some lashes and fix up my makeup, face makeup a little bit, kind of, you know, the fallout and all that. And I'll be right back and then we'll wrap this up. Okay guys, here's the finished look. Overall, yeah, I like the finished results of this look. Made it work, but it was a challenge. It was. As far as the mixing of the crease colors go, like I said, they've come out fairly brown, and I'm trying to think of it in terms of like, you know, say painting, mixing colors. Certain combinations are just gonna get you brown. That's that. But you know what? I just don't like how I go in and depending on what colors I want to mix together and what kind of look I want to create, it may blend well together, it may not. I just don't like that. I don't think that's acceptable for a high-end palette. And like using this palette on a client, oh, I could never. I couldn't imagine like what color combinations will come out good and will not. I couldn't deal with that. It would stress me out. The headaches I've run into on several occasions with this palette, I don't think it's okay. Like I said, this is not a beginner's palette. I knew from the get-go, looking at the colors, it wouldn't be, but it really, really isn't. All I can say is I recommend testing out in stores. I mean, some people really love it. I really wanted to like make a straight answer about this palette, like if it's good or bad, but it's not even possible, you guys. All the mixed reviews, it's for a reason. And it really is just going to come down to personal preference if you think it's worth it or not. So that's why I totally try it in stores first. I mean, even as simple as like how you dip your brush in, your preferences on that could affect the way you feel about this palette. The way you do your eyeshadow can affect the way you do this palette. It's just not one size fits all. That is that. I really hope that this helped you get a clear view on the palette. That was my main focus for this. Let me know if you already have it and what you think. And that is it. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!